It was the last weekend in September 2007 when five guys who last worked together 10 years ago at Hyperion hit to Providence, Rhode Island for a sail to Newport. Here is Shireen and Mike discussing the sleeping arrangements and joking around over who would be sleeping with Russ. This is Russ. At 6 feet 8 inches, this guy snores so loud and deep that Mike describes the sound as a tractor-trailer engine downshifting on a steep grade. The first night is spent in what I have come to think of as the Providence Condo Fright House. This apartment has primitive African ceremonial objects occupying every conceivable area of the rooms. It's hard to tell late at night who is snoring among the din, aside from Russ. It sounded to me that all snored at one point or another, all except for me. I snored not at all is what I thought, and was actually said by some, and was greeted by many a raised eyebrow. All agree nights on this vessel were far from quiet. Only slightly less scary, this African mask watched over me as I slept that first night. I looked up through the shadows, those eyes, that jawline. I could see this mask coming to life crazy easy. Is that real human hair? Sure looks like it. The coloring around the mouth looks so real. Huh? Did that eyelid just move? We had dinner at Cove Restaurant, which is owned by Shireen's mom and is a hybrid antique shop restaurant. The food was delicious and plentiful. She sat with us and chatted with the tables all around us. A gracious hostess seeing to everyone's happiness. I would dine here often if only it were closer. She also allowed us to crash in an apartment used for the storage of antiques. We wandered among these primitive works of art with considerable care. I can imagine her biting nails thinking of orchid-sized humans roaming this collection. The quantity of works could easily make this a room in a museum. So I took the time to appreciate these masks and statues made by hand maybe hundreds of years ago. There is a primitive beauty here that would certainly get you attention at that next Halloween party. I had a nightmare of staring at this guy from inside a pot of stew. Finally on the boat and sailing to Newport with Russ at the helm. This was his first trip with us, and as the new guy has sea legs to earn. Here is Shireen on his perch watching over operations and calling out occasional instructions. Russ tells us this is not all that dissimilar to driving with his wife in the car. "Yes, dear," became a frequent response to course corrections. So Russ is casually informed that this new mast is slightly taller than can safely be sailed under the bridge. When we near the underpass, everyone has to sit over to one side and lean hard to get the tilt we will need to clear the roadway. From a distance, the bridge story seems plausible. The mast is 45 feet tall. "Hang on and lean hard, Russ. We need you working it here, buddy." The closer that you get, though, it becomes pretty obvious that there is no problem with clearance. Yet another challenge, Russ. It seems your head won't even fit under the bridge. Smooth sailing and good winds after the bridge. Approaching port, we see the Queen Mary II is moored off Newport. This ship is over 1,100 feet long and cost nearly $1 billion, or 4 days in a rock. It's hard to get your mind around $1 billion. I like to understand the number by thinking about how far back 1 billion seconds ago would be, which is 1959. Sailing in for a good view, an excellent question floats up to the deck. How close are you allowed to get to this ship? This Coast Guard vessel seemed to appear in a spray of salt water. As we check out the machine gun turret on the rear deck, we listen to a voice barking through the PA. "You have crossed into a secured area." So, time to tack. This is the NCL Veendam cruise ship, which we tacked near enough to slap the hull as we sailed by it. No Coast Guard gunship around here charging like a bulldog on a chain. Apparently, the U.S. doesn't really care much about the Norwegian stuff. Pulling into Newport where the private yachts are just over the top. If you have too much money, then it's time for a big boat. We walk off the docks to Bannister's Wharf, where discussion turned to the evening activity, and Shireen comes up with the game. Everyone is assigned a thing a girl has to do to them. All completely clean, of course. Shireen needs his belly rubbed, I will get my forehead touched, Mike gets his palm read, Terry a back rub, and Russ needs his biceps squeezed. This for his Mongo stories from college. Anxious to get the game in gear, Shireen asks the waitress at dinner to rub his belly. It was a brutal shoot-down that had the rest of us worried about spit in our food. Later at the bar, Shireen was the first successful with a less coarse approach on a pair of chatty girls that to me seemed more interested in Mike. No palms read for Mike that evening, though. He grew to feel his task to be the hardest of the five. Shireen threw one over the plate for me when he told the bar waitress I had a special power, so I said I can guess her hometown with the touch to my forehead. I failed miserably the first time I tried this same tactic on a Polish girl that a couple of us had doubts she even qualified as a girl. Overall, it was a fun game in that it gets you chatting with strangers, and I think it was easier than last year's task of getting a girl to say your secret word in a sentence. I mean, how do you even pronounce scatological? Here we are docked in Newport. There is talk of upgrading to a larger boat. Personally, I hope it doesn't happen. I would miss this beautiful baby. The sailboat is called the Panache, but when we pulled up to the dock for fuel, the attendant called it out as the Panicky. Yeah, that's right, kid. But only when the Coast Guard is around.